li- living memory of the birth of the inflow matrix, shared knowledge community, new paradigm toolkit, very secret plan, school of conscious communication, and planetary guardians. Did you write those down?
No, but you recorded it so I could, just play back. No, I'm kidding.
True. Oh, so why don't you give me where you're at right now? I know you're going to school, but why don't you give me a general? I mean, I sort of put forward perhaps a project sort of out of the scope or out of your interest, and so I'd rather know where you are before pitching you again. So,
All right. Well, I have a side project that I'm trying to launch, which is a comedy website, a comedy platform.
really,
I'm still trying to figure out some of I guess you could say the algorithms or the blueprints and how to create the flow and simplify it. But I also need money to launch it. So while looking at the market and the market direction that we're heading in, considering that we quite haven't felt the full effect of what do you call it? Inflation and recession, and also with the market outlook with artificial intelligence taking over quite a bit of jobs. I decided to go back to school and learn something that may or may not be still relevant. I don't know, but I believe that cybersecurity is something that will be quite relevant. There's a current shortage for it right now, and also I believe with the use of AI and other technologies, you will find a lot more need and demand for cybersecurity. So I this last few years I've been trying to get back into the work market or workplace or whatever, and whether it be in business, project management, business development, the markets have quite shifted. And not only that, but I guess I kind of learned that I'm quite unemployable. I mean, even though I have quite a bit of range of skills and knowledge, it's not really useful to a company because they look at my history and they see me bouncing around from industry to industry, different job, scopes and everything. And, they just consider me, I guess you could say, a flight risk. So while I couldn't really find anything in that, I also wasn't really in the right mental headspace. I was going through a lot of processing of I guess you could say my awakening, like a lot of my past traumas, a lot of my who I was. And I also have you to thank regarding, like when you were asking me about my values and morals, I was like, well, fuck, like I'm right in the middle of the verge of like, like I don't accept this, I accept this. I'm reevaluating, reassessing so many different things. And, I guess you could say I was a bit lost. And, I was also quite I don't know, I got what you can say. Dabble with too much drugs, too much weed, too much mushrooms. And I mean, while I was there, I wasn't really there. I didn't really prioritize or focus on what is important and what's not. Um, I made friends, lost friends, and well, I guess you could say overall I learned quite a few important lessons. Like everyone keeps trying to tell you about things, but you don't really quite interpret them until I guess you could say you're ready. Um, so yeah, that's I guess you could say where I'm at in my life right now. So I'm prioritizing most of my time studying with the cybersecurity schooling. I'm also taking like side courses that I've downloaded online because the course that I'm in, I feel it's very elementary, very like minimal. It's a very rapid 6 month course. And so even if I were to go and work some, entry level jobs, it'll just be an informational analyst or, someone that does basic pen testing or network monitoring or writing reports. And, that's Now that's boring. You could just shoot me now. So I mean, there's, it's really hard to say because like, I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, and you know, my last two startups have really broke me, and like not just financially, but like also, I guess you could say mentally and physically. I drained myself to the point where I've started to give up on the entrepreneurial side, but at the same time, I've tasted the entrepreneurial, like the spirit, the spirit behind building things and actually creating something that's allows you to, actually make fundamental change. And that's where I am with like this comedy site is, where else can you talk about all the things going on in this world without people attacking you?
Mm.
And that's comedy.
Mm.
So, I've had these very interesting ideas years ago um, where I was working with Startup Weekend, where they had a 3-day course, like a 3-day, like you come on Friday, you pitch your ideas, and then you recruit people into your team, and then over the course of the weekend, you're basically like doing all this market research and putting into like a pitch deck, like a format that allows you to like show who you are, what you're about, what's the market size, maybe even develop something to show kind of like what it is, like in visuals, or even like if it's an app or a business or whatever, build it out. And then on Sunday, all these different teams come together and then they battle and compete with each other. Or not like battle and compete, but like they present, and then you have judges that will vote based on off of it. And sometimes it will take off and actually like be developed out in the real world. Sometimes they'll even get funding. San Francisco is a very interesting place. But to not get off track too much, I was thinking of incorporating this into the comedy way, into the comedy platform, where I can bring people together, brainstorm about an idea, and then everyone will have like their different ideas, or or whatever they want to like pitch in surrounding idea A, and then certain people will go out and go out and do it. And I was going to make physical events, but then a business mentor kind of like threw me off track, and he was like, like, you want to launch and make physical events, well, like it's not 1992 anymore. Like we're living in the digital age, and if you want it to grow into something, you got to morph it, transform it into like a digital platform that like spreads what it is that you're trying to convey. And I mean, sure, we got the front end where it's comedy, and then you've got the back end where you got people actually wanting to make comedy. And so how to simplify the process of digitizing, of like how do we group people together and brainstorm about like, hey, I have an idea, like what do you think about ABC? And then you've got a discussion group talking about it, and then maybe you have like another like, okay, like let's from the discussion to the action, you'll be moved from. I'm trying to simplify it, so I'm still stuck there. But thank you for listening. And,
Well, give me give me more, let's say, the breakdown of the tabs, the front interface, like in terms of the comedy platform.
Well, the front interface would just basically be like either like a mashup of TikTok, like video type interface, either like TikTok or browsing by like categories, or whatever is like the latest. Um, you have the latest, and then you also have like others that are like who created the idea, and then you'll have people underneath it that will like make their own versions. So like you might have like 5 or 10 or 20 different influencers making their own video surrounding topic A, and then suddenly we can make like a competition battle between them to like win cash prizes or whatever. So that would, I mean, not to get too complicated into it, but I wanted to also make it in a way so that in the back end where people are talking about these various ideas, people say, for instance, they say, hey, you know, like I would pay $5 to see that. And then, you know, let's say you had 1,000 people to pay $5 or $1, you'll have a ten to $50,000 in a general pool that, you know, like say for instance, like within 30 days, you know, like what can you influencers or what can you content creators make and put out there? And in this way, everyone has their own style, their own messaging, their own, you know, like based off of like whatever was made in the conversations, you know, in the on the one side.
So it starts with an idea. And then you break it down into a design specs.
Yes and no, because when it starts with an idea, you'll have so many different commentary that, you know, like, oh, wouldn't that be funny if it was, you know, if it was done like this, and then another person would be like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if it was done like this, and then everyone, you know, adds their own different values
So,
into like what that, but it's still originating, it's still complementing to idea, the main topic that's, you know, on top.
so then a brainstorm.
Yeah, like a brainstorm, so to speak.
So you start with a
How do you,
idea, and then you start with an idea,
yeah,
and then you go to a brainstorm,
yes,
and then you got to figure out which of that is the best. So you'd have a critical analysis.
yes. And that critical analysis part will come from the content creator, who will read through all the different comments and be like, oh, you know, like I have a great idea on how to do it. And then they'll go out and do it and then submit their video or submit their content in which, you know, later can be, you know, reviewed.
Okay, and so then once you've got that, then you'd have to go deeper into the specs of the idea, right?
Um, what do you mean by specs?
Design specs, like the parameters of whatever is the idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, once once the idea, then the brainstorm, and then the content is produced, I would like to create like a general pool of funding so that, you know, the people would be more enticed of creating content and, you know, battling it out for like, you know, like what else can be created around this idea.
Right.
So that's where I'm kind of stuck right now, is how do I simplify this process and also, you know, with that, because like you got to describe this
Well, are you seeing anything here? Are you noticing anything?
yeah, I am. I've noticed the two little things are changing constantly. Are you doing that automatic? Is it automatic or manual, or how you
Well,
doing?
you notice that it's as we're talking, it's happening, right? Like as I'm pointing to it,
Yeah,
right? And you notice it's matching what we're talking about.
yeah.
Does that give you an idea about something? Does it get in there?
Well, I mean, there's I do like what's happening. I do like what I see.
Is it you're essentially you're creating a process, right? You're
Yeah,
creating a process to get, you got an input, you're creating an output, and it's a series of conversations that occur.
yes.
And each conversation takes you to the next conversation.
Well, it takes you through a series of, you know, of like whether you want to, like how much do you want to be involved? Like, do you want to only brainstorm, or do you want to create content, or do you want to, you know, or do you just want to watch the content and contribute towards, you know, having more content made by saying, hey man, I'd pay $1 to see that, or I'd pay $5 to see that.
Well, so
And
there's a big difference between a content creator and let's say a supporter or an audience, or like you need distinctions of the people that are involved, right? And then depending upon what the distinctions are, these conversations are going to be different,
yes,
right?
yes,
But what I'm saying is every process is basically a movement from one conversation to another, where you have something different happen in that conversation. right?
Well, yes, I mean it'll be like a discussion board once topic is made. And then because it's a style of like, for instance, like Reddit, you know, like people can have like a comment and people can leave sub comments, and then they could also upvote and downvote to see like the relevancy of um you know that comment, or you know like whatever the idea or like the sub idea under the topic, like how funny would that be, and you know, or so forth. And not to complicate things even worse, you know, I was thinking how, rather than just a general pool, you know, like how do we make like a general pool and a sub pool where, you know, for instance, like say for instance a comment with a certain style, someone says that, hey, well, you know, I would pay to see that specifically. And then this way, you know, like there's a value, an actual value behind that comment, so that the content creator who creates videos will see that and be like, oh, you know, that's actually pretty funny. You know, I would do that for my own. Or I mean, you know, I will follow suit to make it according to that, you know, suggestion based off of this like main topic. Yeah.
Are you open to other ideas?
Yeah. I mean, the domain I have is prankers.com. So I want to create it in the niche of pranking, but also at the same time, I don't have to be stuck with prankers, because I could always go out and get any other comedy name.
Hmm.
Um, I could just make a deal with, you know, whatever, you know, domain owner, you know, whether it's a lease to own or even just make a partnership with them. So I mean, I'm not I know my whole goal and idea is to create comedy in a wide general sort of sense, so that I can shine light on towards a lot of the problems in this world. So like we could laugh at things, but like conscious comedy, where you know more people are um, you know, bringing in different ideas into like, oh, wouldn't it be funnier if we shined a light towards this, you know, underneath this topic, and then this way, you know, because like we all see a lot of different problems in the world, and we're, you know, as we all try to change the world, you know, like we don't realize that we could do that very easily through comedy.
What do you think about debates?
Well, I think debates is good, but can be very dangerous, because when you know, if it's not like comedy related, I mean it could be comedy related, but like specifically debates, when it comes to like political or religious, it can get heated very quickly.
That's going to be very funny. Anyone watch? Maybe not for the people involved, but
Yeah,
conflict does seem to make people laugh.
but I mean
Especially if you have a funny topic, right?
but at the same time, you know, like again, it's not about like changing a person's beliefs, because you know a person's beliefs can be deeply rooted, you know, surrounding their upbringing, their surroundings, their, you know, typical ideological, you know, views, and they're also their programming, their state of programming. So I mean, you know, like someone could come in that's a super far left, and someone on the super far right, and you, it will be so difficult to have them meet in the middle, because they're just stuck in their ways. Like to find the middle way would be very, you know, very troubling or very difficult, so to speak.
Well, but you've got, let's say, people watching, let's say, that vote on it, depending upon what the debate is. I mean, I just think that you can incorporate humor in lots of different ways, and sometimes you can try to be straight, and it can be very funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can actually, let's say you put on you wanted to create um, a real serious debate network. And then you have a background show that's about it. And that's the comedy, because trying to get humans to even work together in any way is common. It's like looking at The Office, right? Like it's a funny show because humans are humans. And as soon as they start to get together to work to do anything, especially if it's something good, especially if it's something that's supposed to change the world, especially if it's involving spiritual visionaries, you've got something that's going to go sideways quick, right? I'm just adding another element of depends on if you want to make the comedy within the what you're doing, or actually showing at the same time how you're doing it. The showing of how you're doing it can actually be funnier if you've got like a good group of people. Because I think with comedy, like something like Monty Python, is like if you assemble like 6 people that are very funny on their own, you were going to create a funny show just because by the nature of them interacting, coming up with skits or whatever it is, right? I mean, essentially humor is based upon the best humor is people. And so I'm just asking you, you know, like is that an element? Because I mean, one of my greatest dreams, like, you know, I'm working on lots of different projects and I'm inventing lots of different things. And deep down, all I want to do is a comedy show. Because the actual, like, if I look at the last 20 years of my life and trying to do what I've been trying to do, it's ridiculous. Like I fail miserably. I go through situations that are basically insane about once every 6 months. Doesn't matter what I invent, no one listens to me. Doesn't matter how much I see a solution and show it to people, they won't use it. So the very act of trying to attain goodness is a very funny thing. And right now, I'm going to be building a shared knowledge community of 144 people. And you know it's going to go wrong. You know it's going to go sideways. And I've found something in the last weekend that's changed everything. And what I'm doing is I'm introducing a layer of cartoon characters that are animals that are personifying the conversation types. So there's an animal for a brainstorm. There's an animal for a conflict resolution, like a gorilla. There's an animal for a reformat, like a chameleon. So it's like taking this very dry, very boring, dull convo types. It's like a communication codification system, right? I think I showed you, right? The 72 combo types, but giving them animals, and then each animal is going to have a person. So there's going to be 72 people that are like the main, like the negotiator, the debater, the brainstormer, the needs analysis, the welcomer, you know, take on one convo type and then create skits between these convo types to show what happens, because we're always going in and out of a convo type all the time, but it's unconscious. We, like, humans have no idea of conscious communication, none.
Well, I know
And
speaking the same language, but on totally different wavelengths. It's wild.
it's so I'm wondering, because why I originally, sorry, I got this throat analogy for the last 2 months. My throat's all sore. I'm looking at creating a course generator system. Like all my work just generates courses. It's just, there's a way to constantly create new courses that you could fit people into. And then I've got a few other people that are sort of like course creator expert, and then somebody who needs something to create a whole bunch of courses in, and then someone who's a sort of expert course deliverer. And what I have is a process to create courses, unlimited courses. And so I was looking at creating a business team, and you came to mind in terms of, you know, if you weren't the main lead, but you were still able to do some magic in the background in terms of business development. That's what I was thinking of you. But now you bring this up. I don't know, like, I just think if you can get people that are interested in the same thing, I mean, I'm interested in comedy, very, very interested in comedy. And it's sort of, I have more interest in that than pretty much anything, really, because I have like the idea of the Very Secret Plan is a comedy show that is basically about what is trying to happen. Like I'm saying that I have a way to change the world's economic system. I'm saying I have a way to design a new paradigm. I'm saying I'm saying I got the best operating system on the planet that hasn't been built yet. That now with AI, I'm starting to build it. And it's like everything I have, a huge missing piece was AI. And now I'm sort of doing the manuals, I'm doing the business plan, I'm doing all the pieces that I was just overwhelmed with the amount of work I had to do. And now it's like we'll be able to make movies and TV shows and like that, right? With all the extra the content creation is going to be completely transformed. And I think I have a methodology again to create unlimited content once all the pieces kind of come together and once the right AI software is put together. And one of the first things I was looking at was a debating platform. Because like you, I think we need to rigorously debate everything. You know, like if we don't communicate, we go to violence. If we don't understand one another, you know, things get worse. And so I think that if we had an online debating platform that was like as big as Twitter or Facebook or any of these big ones. See, the thing is that these are all platforms, but I think now what we're going to go into is niches. We're going to go into very specific methodologies of combining all these things together and create some really neat stuff. I think in what's coming up is a real integration of so much. And again, I've got the methodology, tools, processes. I got the whole thing to do it. But ultimately it comes down to who teams up with who.
So are you thinking of making the debate like a game where it's like one-on-one and then two people from the opposite sides of the spectrum will talk about a certain topic, and then like when after like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, like each side will get 2-3 minutes, and then like you have the like it's live streamed, um and then like you have people who's watching it will vote to see who won that round, and then maybe there'll be like 10 rounds or something
Well,
like that.
yeah, well, like tournaments, oppositions, teams, like a whole network, like kind of like set it up like basketball.
Yeah.
With like a regular season playoffs and that sort of thing, and the big tournament at the end, but have like a debating game. And I've already made a prototype with this company, Warm Space. They still have to make a save button. So, but it's about 20 minutes for the debate. And they have a methodology going, you go now, then you go, 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 and then it'll be wrapped up and then put through a process of voting. And then again, like I've been designing the whole thing for that. Because basically I have something can pretty much design anything, I think, quite quickly. Got a timing mechanism. I've got, just so many different models to combine to create all the sort of language structures that are necessary. And debating was the first one, but it could also be used for humor storytelling. Like basically any type of conversation type could be the focus, and then you just build everything around it. But it depends. I mean, depends on you. Depends on, I mean, if you're fine doing you, being you, and you're going to take the reins and go do it. I got about 20,000 hours of design. I mean, I believe I reached a level that no one is at. And I got tools which no one has. And so for me, it's just sort of picking and choosing, what to focus on and what to bring to market first, and what's the best idea. And
Yeah.
I just thought that, from what I remember about you, is that you have, like, what you say is bad for you in a corporate setting is good in a shared knowledge community setting, because the idea is that get together and create product teams, right? Just create a methodology to make products easily and build an infrastructure and a marketing larger system for us all. So it's like you got, like, imagine 144 artists all put together and they're popping shit out, but then there's a marketing team, there's an infrastructure team. You don't got to handle the accounting, you don't have to handle the legal, you don't have to handle all the shit you don't want to handle. And then the percentages are split up, and everyone in the shared knowledge community is helping each other make their dollar per hour living. And then they're also working on product teams where they're splitting percentages. So it's like an empowerment system for our artists and inventors. Because essentially, I've been missing it this entire time, right? I mean, I need to build it because I can't exist without it. And I think that we have to look at AI to streamline the automation of lots of things that can be. And once it's set up right, then we can all, gain the fruits from it. But right now, there's this massive, millions of people are looking how we're going to use AI. But I'm not sure how many of them already have a format to build into. And so all my 20,000 hours of design was building this infrastructure that now I'm just sort of, okay. It's the idea being it's a cognitive structure that we sort of share in our minds. We share it in the software, and it becomes the methodology for how we think together. And that's what I think is missing, is that we're missing a shared language structure to really understand how to work together. Everything's in the old paradigm, and that old paradigm is either going to break apart or it's trying to enslave us even more. So how do we create something new that's good for us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have to look at the reality of people are living, they're working, they're trying to save money. Some people are working multiple jobs. Some people don't have the time or the bandwidth. Some people may or may not see and agree with your vision. They might have their own like additive vision on top of that. I mean, there's so many different variables in regards to, like each different project that you may have, whether it's the debate game or the conscious communication card set or game, or other projects that you have. But I think it also comes down to like, what are you focusing on? Like, I know you're trying to create teams and you're trying to make many things happen, but I think it really comes down to also is like, what is it that drives you? Like, what is it that you will find more as a priority that you should focus like a majority of your time on versus trying to juggle everything at once? Because I'm talking about like from past experience as well. I've had to juggle 2-3 projects at once, and they all failed because I didn't focus on one project at a majority. I tried giving them even time. I didn't prioritize them, and
were they integrated together?
No.
Or are they just separate? They're all separate.
Like one was online software as a service, another one was manufacturing a product, and another was wholesaling electronic gadgets. Yeah, and I had teams surrounding all of them. But that's
I mean the one thing about mine is they all fit together. And you're right, I'm jumping all over the place. And I think ultimately the card set is going to be that focus point. Because the card set sort of helps everything grow, and it's the main reference point, and it's a revenue generator kind of thing. But I mean, when you sort of tap into that unlimited creativity,
I know
it is one of the, and that's why like the shared like the sort of like the shared knowledge community as an organizational structure, it's I'm pretty much probably attempting the impossible, but it just seems that the impossible just became possible because of AI. I've probably written, I don't know, 500 pages in the last 3 weeks that I couldn't write before, that now I wrote because I got some little machine that's popping this shit out, right? And I'm asking the right questions because I already got, again, the infrastructure. So I'm just filling in the details now. So, I mean, we're just in it's changing, right? It's It is completely changing. And I feel that everything I've been working on all this time has led to this moment where now it can actually come into being because of AI. And I think that it's sort of bringing magic back in, right? It's bringing, there's a sense of magic. There's a sense of right now I could do anything because I just in 20 hours just created 100 characters, popped them into the whole idea, and now there's a whole other level of sort of story by bringing these 100 characters in. And it's like this element, and as these elements come in, there's this holy fuck, there's this so many things you can do with it. And there's like what, there's about how many people went out of work in the last 6 months from the tech companies? 50,000, 100,000,
Yeah.
200,000?
Well, I was gonna say the 20 to 30,000 at least, but probably a lot more. Yeah.
That's it, you know, and there's going to be how many more million because of AI? How many more million because of robots and automation? Like they said 50 million people in the next 3 to 5 years or something, right? Like,
This is just the beginning.
so there's going to be all these people out there, and these are smart people, still resourced, that are going to want to participate in something different, right?
Yep.
And so the shared knowledge community is a container for 144 people to play together. It's like a new sandbox. And plus that communication system, you know, plus all the other sort of tools. And again, you bring in AI, and it's just like we're entering a renaissance of creativity. We're entering this as the structures breaking down, and as you know, the sort of bad guys are bringing in their control mechanisms. Like, how are they gonna, like, if they stop TikTok, there's gonna be 150 million people that are pissed.
Yeah.
That are pissed that right now are all talking to each other about how fucking pissed they're gonna be. And did you see the congressional hearings? You must have seen that, right?
I didn't see it, but I do follow the news behind it.
Okay, so I mean, there was, I don't know, 50 million people watching, or saw it the next day, or saw, you know, the one guy asking, is what Wi-Fi connected to TikTok? They made fools of themselves. They showed the whole world that they have no idea what's going on in the larger scheme of things. Like,
Well, they know what's going on. I mean, according to lobbyists that were paid by Facebook, you know, according to reports coming out, Facebook is losing quite a chunk of advertisers. They're losing quite a chunk of content creators.
they're already done. They're a MySpace that doesn't know it. They blew it. Their censorship, they've pissed off so many people that, I mean, it's kept as a background because you got some friends. It's kept because people still have a few habits, but all the attention's in TikTok.
Yeah.
You know, because it's so much better and in so many ways. And you know, something will replace TikTok, and something, you know, there's always going to be something new in the next 2-3 years. And but it's just, but the reason I'm saying that they're missing the boat, it's like if you're not in TikTok and you have no idea what, you know, the power of it and what it's doing and how, you know, what it's doing for people and how the impact is happening, and then to think they can shut it down and 150 million people are going to go, okay, that's like, they're going to do something, you know, whether it's they'll kill Facebook, they'll kill Instagram, you know, whether they go to Clap or anything else. I don't know if anything else could actually replace it, but I just think that, you know, the cat's out of the bag, and the people have absolutely no trust in these, you know, governments. Like, and especially I think the younger generation, you know, I think they're going to bring in this digital currency. They're going to bring in digital IDs, and then there's going to be a rebellion.
Yeah.
There's going to be like either civil war or rebellion everywhere, because, you know, there's, everyone knows the WEF is just a bunch of scammers. You know, who elected them? Where'd they come from? And why are they dictating policy?
This masks for the globalists. That's all. Or I mean, sorry, puppets. You know, being played by the globalists.
And you know, I don't know about you, but my TikTok is filled with people that know about it, share about it, are pissed about it. And I don't know. I mean, it's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be a very interesting year. And I think that there's like something like debate. There's a huge need for people to express themselves in something more than just like TikTok is one to many, but it's just them, as opposed to, let's say, what, like if me and you were in a debate right now, you know, there'd be more, each of us, let's say, would be trying to make a point. Each of us would be trying to do something that there's a little bit more energy involved, right? And I think I think, you know, whatever's going to lead us to be more sophisticated in communication, whatever's going to lead us to be more intelligent in communication. And I like the humor idea. I mean, I fully support that. But I just think there's something bigger we need to build, and then everyone will find their place or niche in it. But if we're going to try to do this alone, good luck. You know, if you can be an independent contractor, an independent entrepreneur, but I think we're going to teams, and we have to have some sort of structure to create the money flow in a fair way. So it's, you know, because things break down, because people, you know, they don't feel as if they're valued and they don't know what they're getting. You know, we just need to create some templates for product teams that works, you know, that's actually worked upon, you know, fair percentages. So people know going in, okay, I'm getting this, and it's what we're aiming to do. And I'm involved with a whole bunch of other people. It's not just an independent team.
How do you foresee this debate platform? Because in my mind, I don't know, it has to be gamified, you know, where people feel like, because like, you know, people are, as human species, like they're very competitive. And you know, I don't want to say that, you know, 3D 5D or whatever, you know, like we and versus me, you know, like, I mean, yes, we are shifting as a consciousness, but as we are still a human nature, you know, like I look at the elements of what takes off a platform. And oh, let me see this. And I think in a gamified way, you know, on various topics, because you can have a handful of topics that, like the top 50 topics, and have it recycled among one another, and people can choose various topics that they wish to debate over. And then underneath those topics, you know, they can, you know, say for instance those debates along with the people who voted after them to you know, to be shown like in a, like a scoreboard type of way, you know, gamified type of way.
For sure.
Okay.
See it.
Yeah.
I was working on the website. We already got a prototype built. Again, I spent quite a bit of time on the design of it, fitted into the timing schedules. But again, it's sort of one project, but like I see these project teams, you know, that are all using the same sort of design, like this is a time stream. So it basically gives 9 different time cycles.
So aside from me looking at it, could you introduce it so I get a better understanding of your uh how
Okay.
you
So it comes down to the debate, which is in the center part. And
okay.
that's, you know, inside an hour. Right now it's like about 23 minutes. If you go to the minute cycle, you have the format of the debate. There'll probably be different types. Like this one started with, you have a 1 minute intro, then a 1 minute intro. Then I think a 3 minute, you give your main position. Then the person responds for a minute on it. Then they get 3 minutes. Then you respond for a minute. and it goes open game for 10 minutes. And then you get a closing and the other guy gets a closing for 2 minutes. So that's the format. Again, that can change depending if that doesn't work, but then there's basically a lunar schedule where there's sort of like, if you look it up, there's the social arena, family arena, intimate arena, service arena, friendship and business. So there's 6 different types of arenas. Then each one of those has a breakdown of 6 different types, which I've already sort of figured out. So it gets sort of like there's 36 categories. You can't see the next layer from here. Then there's one person per 36 categories. And what they do at the beginning is they just find one person per lunar cycle. So there's one debate per lunar cycle. So then they have to find the 2 people that have the debate. It goes into the community. And then you meet with your team to discuss your next topic. So it has there's a lunar schedule to it. So that means there's a daily schedule of debates that are occurring. And then every season, there's sort of standings at a tournament. So there's like a big debating tournament every season. And then at the end of the year, there's a big year tournament. There's a specific ranking system of how the scoring happens and what happens with your team. There's obviously the audience who's going to be watching it. And then at lifetime recognition, like over, there's going to be sort of like the best debaters and the best topics and the best whatever. But it's like creating, again, like as opposed to like a sports league like the NBA or the NHL, of creating, a debate. The debate, and that's the switch from the physical to the digital, of going, these conversations are the keys to how humans interact. Debating is the way we basically create truth or find out truth. And I think that's one of the missing elements in our life, is that the debate was cut off. We weren't allowed the other side. It was just shoved down our throats. And if you had an opposing opinion, you were censored. And that just isn't right. Right? Like, I don't mind going along with the government if they come up with an idea, if it's a good idea and it's been thoroughly vetted or checked out. But if they come out with an idea that's obviously a scam and it's harmful and it's bad for humans and we can't argue against it, then that's just tyranny. That's just, I'm not exactly into that, right?
Yeah.
So but the same thing, instead of, let's say, the debate, you could have storytelling, and you could have, because I think a lot of the things which you were talking about, I had the same idea, and actually been talking with other people that sort of similar ideas. And again, it's basically a process, right? It's basically, we go from here to here, we go through these steps. And what I've got is a universal process of identifying specific convo types at each step that lead to an outcome.
Okay.
So it just depends on really what is the idea. Because I mean, what I heard from you, I think I sort of got it, but it was, you kind of come up with an idea and then you figure out, who, like 20 people could come up with the idea. And break it down and come up with different scenes or different, like, if we're creating a movie, you could have 20 scenes, break down the scenes, and then have different groups coming up with each scene, and then put a movie together based upon different people doing different parts. I've actually got a card set specifically for that, where you get 52 cards and you come up with scenes for a movie. So, I like the cards because the cards are the physical representation in hand, which are not just intangible, right? But
Well, I was thinking about the communication card set, whether or not we can integrate AI to listen to the conversation and offer suggestions, kind of like how you were doing, like with the background, and it was flipping and changing as our conversation changed, like that.
well, that's huge. The thing about, as I was doing the manual, I'm asking, I'm giving it the 72 combo types. And one thing I found out, that the memory is hugely important. I want the AI to remember everything that I'm feeding it. And Chat GPT, at least the one I have, doesn't do that. It does it to a limited degree, but then I found this other that's an assistant where you can load all your documents and then you can sort of query having documents in a background where you can say, look at the 72 conversation types, find 3 that work in this situation, give us 3 characters that do that, give us a dialogue between those characters, given these plot, given this plot sequence. Like it's just fascinating, to think that what we could do. And I just think I got a lot of pieces, but we just got to get sort of like a number of different people, all who, are sort of interested in sort of making a mass creative platform.
I saw this I don't know if it was Udemy or one of those other like self-taught type of training courses, but it was something about like setting up an AI and then training it on your own server. And then it really got me to think that, oh wow, if this is your own AI and you're training it with its own data set, then you don't have to keep, like with Chat GPT, you have to continuously create a new, a chat session.
Mm-hmm.
If you have your own AI, you potentially save those data sets that you're, I have no experience in it. I'm just, this is my mind, going into a like shotgun mode and going, oh my God, you can do a lot of different things with this. But I don't know how easy or how difficult it'd be, but it might be, an idea to look into as well, so that you don't have to keep recreating different sessions and such.
I think that's huge. I think it's a big part, because that's what I have found the biggest limitation right now is that I want it to remember what I fed it, so my prompts take that into account, because it's a sequencing, right? When I find there's a real sequencing, it's like this, then this, then this, then this, and this, and if it forgets what you did yesterday, you got to put it all in again, and it's tiresome.
It is.
Well, I'm wondering, like, this is just a sort of reconnect and check in to see where you're at and to sort of tell you a bit where I'm at. I just from my own point of view, anything to do with the comedy, I'd be very interested in. And I just think that there's, I think we both also share, we want to, help the world in a sense, achieve something which is good for our species, and to sort of help lead our species perhaps to a better place. And I think that's important, because I think that's ultimately the bigger picture, right? Like, if we're just here to make the cash and run, I don't think either of us are like that. And I think that, the funnest part is really peer-to-peer creativity, is like, you've got stuff I can never get, I got stuff you can never get, we get a few more people in there the same way, and then all of a sudden pop goes a weasel, and that idea comes out and everyone goes, yeah, that's it. And currently I'm working with a few teams, and I can see it. It's like it takes a bit of time, right? Like, it's the human connection, I think, that's more important than anything. The AI is just filling in the gaps, but it's like, if you can get a bunch, 4 or 5 humans to really enjoy creating together, that's to me where the real juice is. Don't get too excited.
Hey, I wanted to ask you something.
What's that?
A couple years ago, when we went on that journey and we like did the audio recording.
Oh yeah. What happened to that, you mean? Or
No, I wanted to ask you, did you mirror my thoughts or was that you? Because that's been stuck. Like I felt so weirded out by that. I was like, how does this guy know how I think and feel? And like you were so passionate about the way the way you said things, that I was like I know that we live in a very mirrored world, and that, you know, like energy can be transferred and such, especially when under such journeys. So that's why I have to ask, I have to know. I mean, I know you listen back to it yourself later on, and I don't know if you recollect the conversation entirely or part, but
Well, tell me what happened. Like, what do you mean? Like, from your point of view, what?
well, we were talking about the power structures of the world, how basically like people like you and I, we don't have the type of support or network systems to really be able to bring ourselves to the next levels. And it's not just about bringing ourselves to the next levels, but it's also about like just not having the type of resources, not having the type of abilities to, you know, get out of this little pit that like a lot of innovators and entrepreneurs tend to get themselves into, whether they don't have the funding or various knowledge, whether it's, you know, business side or marketing side or communication side. I mean, there's so many different elements that leaves a handful of us just grasping for air, because we have rent to pay, we have, you know, we have to go to work, we have, you know, our bandwidth gets so clogged up that, you know, like the things that we actually want to do we can't do because, you know, we're stuck in the system, we're stuck into, you know, trying to survive rather than trying to, you know, or like having the ability to thrive. And the way you conveyed that audio, like when we had that, you know, that conversation on the audio recording, like that was just pure emotion, that was like so pure truth of how I thought and felt at that time, and I still do feel at that time at times, you know, that like, you know, can be helpless. But I mean, you know, there's moments of clarity that when you notice or have awareness of your downfalls and you start writing them down. I wouldn't say downfalls, I would say maybe, you know, like in areas you can improve, you know, and you start writing them down and you start focusing on them and you start, you know, excelling in them. I mean, there's a lot of different categories, but like again, it's all about the awareness. It's all about slowing down. It's all about, you know, not escaping, you know, not escaping the reality and just facing it and just facing that like, okay, I'm not great at communication. So how do I get better at communication? And, you know, you start diving into each subject one by one and, you know, slowly you progress, you know, like being present and actually listening to understand. Thank you very much for that. You know, I didn't realize how much I wasn't really present, you know, I was just really just coasting through. So I mean, and same with the value system, you know, like many, like over the past couple years, you know, like I would still go back to your Facebook page because you would post various, you know, things, whether about your conscious communications card sets or, you know, just some of your other posts, and I go, you know, this is an interesting guy, you know, like I learned a few things, you know, I learned quite a bit actually off of you, you know, and so I mean,
What's the point? Like, what's the question?
the question is, were you mirroring my emotions, my feelings, my thoughts, or was that you as well?
Well, one thing I found is in any conversation, especially one-on-one, there's a field, right? There's a field of interaction between us. And then depending upon how open that field is, different information can be conveyed. And so, especially with something like mushrooms or different psychedelics, the field can get very open. And so, depending upon, like I've found that around certain people, I get downloads or I sort of, I don't know if you'd call it channeling, but you it's like, I don't know if you're reading the field or the field is using you as a methodology to speak.
Okay.
And so in that situation, depending upon how conscious everybody is. It's like in the Bible says, when two or more of you are around, I am there. It's like there's a presence, there's something that happens that humans have the ability to activate, and it's up to them how much they're going or are able to. And sometimes it can get a bit freaky.
A bit.
Well, it's up to you. I mean, it wasn't freaky to me, but it's like there's just wizards, play in the field of consciousness, in a manner that's different than most people. And then if you're open to it, there's more of a transmission field. Like if people want to learn, then there's an intention there that's in the field that is very different than if you're just closed to hearing things from people. So when you get a bunch of humans together, like in a workshop, and everyone's very open, and the teacher is in that field, they'll transmit information at a very high level if the field allows it. But if you have one person who's pissed, or one person who's off, or one person who's, I find it really shuts the field, like it affects the field. You want everyone there with an openness, because that one person can really, we're all very powerful, and we can shut things down. But it's like when all the circuits are open, it's like great things can happen.
Oh yeah.
I've seen it around the table, around the synergizer, where it creates this field where you're tapping into the group intelligence. Like everyone gets their turn. Everyone gets the attention of everyone at the table. And how rare does that happen? How rare do you go around a table where you are the focus of attention in just with everyone's permission, with everyone's agreement, and then you ask your question, and then you participate in something, which doesn't happen very often, right? Like a group of people focused on you to assist you to answer a question. And so I noticed over the years that field of intelligence is like a superpower, a synergistic superpower for humans. And people, they get it in basketball, they get it in sports, they get it in different high-powered teams. But just in general, people have such a competitive mindset, and people are so guarded, and they're so untrusting, and they're so like, there's always this defense that stops the synergy. But something like a psychedelic just opens the heart, opens everything, and all of a sudden everyone's in a good mood, and wonderful, beautiful things happen.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I'll be honest, like when we talk about debate, that to me represents two people not being able to, and I don't want to say not being able to, because, I don't want to preset but like it's taking two people on opposite sides, and it's trying to get them to either meet on the middle, or one side coming to the other. And when two people come in and they start to debate, they're gonna start talking about their side, and they're gonna be talking about their view. And to really get the person to change their view, or even to like move over to the middle, or even onto their side, that it creates like a certain sense of divide. And I as much as I understand what you're trying to do is trying to bring people to get a better understanding, and try to get some enlightenment, or even like learn a thing or two that might help them bring them to the middle. I mean, yeah, that is very important.
Well, I think it's sometimes you got to start where people are at, and there's a lot of online conflict, and there's a lot of polarity, there's a lot of division, it's everywhere, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so create arena first where that can happen, but also have a movement where maybe it's not a debate anymore, it's an exploration. you start with debates, but then you hope, oh wow, here's a doorway to exploration. What's an exploration? Oh, you go there and two people are trying to figure out a topic, figure out something rather than debating. So because there's 72 and probably more conversation types, just because there's one, it doesn't mean that's the only one. But once you've created one, now you've got a format where you can just plug in a different combo type and have a whole other business platform. So I just see it as a beginning. And, you know, humans, for whatever reason, we like conflict. And if we can move from the violent conflict, which seems to be where all the attention is, to actual intelligent conflict, an actual like debate that, you know, if you get two very good debaters going at each other, it's wonderful to watch. And then it doesn't matter. I mean, if they agree or not, it's the audience that gets educated. The audience watches and hears both sides and goes, okay. I mean, recently I've been talking with someone who I wouldn't normally talk to, but because of proximity, closeness, we spend every day and we have a little chat. And because I guess of age, or just because, you know, by this age you kind of get worn down, you're not trying to compete or make someone wrong because they're different, you're just listening. I found that I've come to a lot of sort of conclusions that are maybe more in alignment with how he thinks because of how he presented it. And I think the same thing can happen. You know, I think the big thing is to control the platform, like what happens with Facebook or what happens in Instagram or all these other, like they have censorship, they have all these things that stop things. And I think that, you know, the communication is, you know, I think is the most important thing that we need training in. And, you know, we have all these physical devices and so many mediums now, but we don't know how to communicate.
Yeah.
And so part of, again, this whole thing is, okay, debate here, click the button, get debate training, click the button, get communication training. So like the platforms are all methodologies to get attention, but it's also to draw in clients to teach them how to communicate and to give work for all the people that we know.
Yeah, when you said it's not about the people debating, it's about the audience, that was a very, I missed that part.
It's pretty big.
That's good. That's very important because it is the bigger picture, the wider picture behind. Is of course there'll always be people interested in various topics.
And some people, like they're eloquent, they're like the people I see in TikTok, you know, they're very intelligent, eloquent people. And you know, I would love to see both sides get up there and do their best, and, you know, not have name calling and not have, you know, have certain rules where you're not just getting into stupidity, and to teach and to learn how to have an argument, without going into insult, and how to have an argument and know what your position is and know what your beliefs are, know what it is. And then let's say all of a sudden this person makes a point, or actually in the middle of it, you go, you're right. You know, to show that people can have the humility to change their position or understand, like, because there's a lot of things going on I don't know about. And there's things I disagree with, maybe, and I don't believe a lot of things which people believe. But maybe if I had enough evidence, maybe if I had, you know, enough, whatever it is. But like, there's a lot of things out there which are up in the air, right? Like, did we go to the moon? Like, I'd love to see debates on whether we go to the moon or not, right? And then, you know, all of a sudden I see this movie, this little video by Stanley Kubrick, who's admitting, yeah, I filmed it. I was the guy who came up with the whole thing. And he's admitting it. And I said, what? And I've actually seen movies where they actually are saying, oh yeah, we didn't go to the moon, it was just this scam. And so when the movie brings it in, you know, there's just, we're in a time where truth is so, you know, it's gone. Nobody knows. And I just think that, again, having a platform to debate the bigger issues that we all face, I think it would be huge for our species.
Oh, absolutely. Whether the earth is flat or not. Whether there's more land beyond the Arctic wall or not, or you know.
Well, and I also think that, let's say for your idea, you could take that platform then and just copy it and then just get specific around certain parameters. And then you've got a great comedy, whatever, like it's a matter, like, what do you need? You need a timing scheduling system, you need a content, there's all these parts that you can just put together. And once we've got the platform built, just shift some parts, change this, change that. All of a sudden you got another thing, pop, new revenue stream, or not a revenue stream, depending.
Yeah. Well, it's just a matter of simplifying the user experience, on the front end side.
Mm.
Because I'm talking about like not the audience part, but I'm talking about the more complicated part where, the idea, the conversations, and then the content creators, like how to simplify that in such a way that is straightforward. You don't have to do too much explaining. And you also at the same time try to focus on conscious comedy, like try to convey like bonus points or brownie points towards people who shine lights, on situations around the world type of thing.
Mm.
And I think that would also help to take off because everyone sees a problem in this world. And of course, we don't have the time or the abilities to really like combat a lot of these things going on, but there might be some people that are more passionate over a certain topic or a certain subject. And this is maybe one way or their way to shine, and being able to generate ideas through reviewing all the different conversations that was discussed during the comments section, so to speak. And well,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think I'm at I think I gotta go. My
yeah.
throat is swelling up.
I do have some I do have some ideas regarding the debate, but I would also like to see what you have so far. And I don't know, we could keep talking, and will depend on what or how, and how to help, or we just keep the conversation going. And
Okay. Okay.
yeah, we could figure it out. I mean, there's nothing I can say precisely at this time, but yeah, I know I do see a like debate that could take off very very well. I like, in my opinion, I think it's really got to be gamified, you know, um, in such a way that like people feel like they're part of it, not just the people debating, but also like the audience aspect of it as well.
Definitely. I think that, for points for voting, points for showing up, points for sharing, anything that's valuable becomes points for, and I agree completely.
Awesome. Well, hey man, it was very nice talking with you. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you again. Good to check in. Glad you're live. And we'll just go with the flow. And you are now in the very secret plan.
Awesome. I'll see you around.
All right.